Please, couple of things. First of all, I have not forgotten about those, that work you did when I was absent. The thing is, I had a student, a former student from the high school who's in the Honor Society, contact me and offer to do something for me for $10 for the High School Honor Society, a kind of a fundraiser thing. So I said, what do you want to do? She said, well, how's about I grade papers? So sometime this week I expect to hear back from her and she's gonna grade them, but I have to have something for her to do, and I'm actually paying money to get it done. So when she gets done grading the things, I will get them back to you, but they're sitting there right in a pile, so. Okay, next, I was a little bit surprised by your quiz, particularly number 3. I thought I had been more clear on number 3, and based on the number of people who got number 3 wrong, I don't think I was clear enough. So, let me try to be more clear right now. All right, Light Spencer. All right, so we take a look at the first one, and other than 2 people who forgot how to add, one of which got 56 and one of which got 58, other than that, and there were 1 or 2 others, we were pretty good on this one. Completing the square, you always think half and square. Half of 14 is 7. 7 squared is 49, so you add the 49 to both sides. 8 and 49 make 57. Then, as far as the square rooting goes and the getting the x by itself, we're very good at that. All right? Now, the parabola vertex form, I do believe every kid in the class got it right. And what was odd to me was you knew when you saw it here to reverse it. Pretty much every kid in the class wrote -2, 9. You knew that the horizontal shift is always reversed because it's in the parenthesis, and that the vertical shift stays the same. So we're good. Now we come down to here, and it says, let's put it in this form. Well, guys, isn't this the completing the square form? Isn't this the same form? Right? So likewise, it's in a parenthesis, so you need to reverse it. This was x plus 4, so when I half it to half its square, half of 4 is 2. So that makes this x plus 2. But it's reversed because it's in the parenthesis, so the value of a is -2. Or think of it this way. Isn't it true that x minus -2 is x plus 2? Okay. And as far as why the number of roots here, it's 2 roots. The easiest thing to do is graph it. If you graph it properly, you'll see it touches twice over here. Apparently, Chloe had a very difficult time with that.
I'm very nice.
All right. Another way to do it would be to solve it. I saw a number of people do that. Oh, there's my 2 roots. I factored and solved. Or you could do the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. 49 minus 4 times 1 times 10 gives you the square root of 9, which is 3. So there's going to be a plus 3 and a minus 3. So those are the solutions. Okay, any questions about that? All right. All right, Kirsty, you can go potty now. Let's go to last night's homework, everybody. And let's get it out. Oh. And I actually want to begin our work looking at the last part of the lesson and go through this together because it will lead into today's lesson very well. What we did yesterday, we're doing today, and we're doing tomorrow. So the key is that by the end of tomorrow, we're very good at it. I expect to be good at it by the end of today, and I think tomorrow will just be a little bit of reinforcement. So, look, we talked yesterday about this concept called the parent function. The parent function in both of these diagrams is f of x. It's the function if nothing is done to it. And you need to learn to recognize that anytime you have a v, not a u is a parabola, that's an x squared guy. Anytime you have a sharply pointed v, it's going to be absolute value. And the most basic absolute value function is f of x's absolute value of x. And that is your parent function. Can everybody on your calculator, let's remind you of how to type in absolute value into your calculator. Everybody go to y equals. Make sure you clear it all out except for the first one. Okay, y equals. Now go to math, number, and the first one says abs. That's not for your cut 6-pack. That is for absolute value. And then put in an X and hit graph. And do you see the nice sharply pointed V? Okay. So that shows you that it's an absolute value, and you need to learn to recognize that. My niece is a first grader, I think? Yeah, first grader over at River Avenue Elementary, and she was struggling a little bit with reading. She's doing such great math. She was struggling a little bit with reading, and my sister confessed the other day that she was being somewhat lazy about helping her daughter learn how to read. But now they've given them this list of sight words that they just have to recognize on sight. You don't sound them out, you just see them and know them. And ever since she has done that with her, apparently her reading has jumped 2 levels, God bless, in just since the beginning of the year. So it's a really good thing. Likewise, in math, you need to have sight functions. Certain things you just see and know. And this pointy V, immediately you start thinking absolute value. Just as with a U, you start thinking something squared, y equals x squared. Now, the g of x1, you raise it 3. That's vertical shift. So I just take the same function and put plus 3 at the end. And then the h of x1 is the same function. I just go down 4, so I put a minus 4 at the end. Now the next one you have to learn to recognize also, a sight function. And this sight function that you're going to recognize here is the cube root function. The reason you know it's cube root, it kind of looks like square root, but it's cube root because it goes into the negatives. Square roots don't go into the negatives because you can't find a negative square root, but you can find a negative cube root. So the g of x function raises it up 1, so it's cube root of x plus 1. And the h of x function moves it left 5, and inside a grouping symbol, and a radical is a grouping, then you have to reverse it. So it's the cube root of x plus 5. All right? So those were 2 questions that I had hoped to get to yesterday that we did not get to, and we will get to a bunch today. But I want to reinforce the idea of vertical shift being at the end, horizontal shift being inside the grouping symbol, whether that be a square root, a cube root, an absolute value symbol, or a parenthesis. And now we get to your homework. This, to me, is a phenomenally important factoring homework. If you can do every one of these factorings, you can factor anything they will throw at you on your Regents exam. And if there's anything here that gives you difficulty, then that's a point where you can get tripped up on the Regents exam. So make sure that you can factor those perfectly, all 5 of them. Take a look, see if there are any issues. Yes? Letter D. Okay. Do you see how there's only 2 terms? The first term is 81x to the 4th, y to the 4th, and the second term is z to the 4th? When I see that with a minus in the middle, I immediately, again, sight recognition, I immediately start thinking difference of 2 perfect squares. Okay. Now, can I square root this first guy? Yes, I can. 9x squared y squared. Can I square root the second guy? Yes, z squared. So I get 9x squared y squared minus z squared, and 9x squared y squared plus z squared. That's your difference of 2 perfect squares. However, the directions give me a little hint here completely. I can do this because this is another difference of 2 perfect squares. Because I can square root 9x squared y squared, and I can square root z squared. So this becomes 3xy minus z, 3xy plus z, and then the previous one is what it is. You can't factor a sum of 2 perfect squares, only a difference. Yes?
Why do you have to totally write it out? Can't you, because I ended up getting 3xy minus z because I totally, I didn't start it out. Do you understand what I mean?
No. I don't think anybody does. Okay. Are you trying to say this? Are you trying to say that in your head you were able to see that this would go directly to here?
I didn't get that because I didn't write it like that. The first thing I did was 81, the square root of 81x to the 4th, and then I didn't realize that was one whole term. So then I found the square root of y
right
to the 4th, and then I did the same thing with z, and then I got 9x squared y squared minus z squared, and then I found the square root again.
Well, the thing is, first off, it sounds to me like you didn't put this here at all.
No.
Yeah, then you're going to be wrong.
I don't understand why we have to put that.
Because if you, well, let's say you don't put it. Take the answer you have on your paper, multiply it back, and see if you get what you started with. You're not going to. And that's why it has to be there. When you recognize that difference of two perfect squares, it's going to be a binomial with the roots, a binomial with the roots. The first one will have a plus or a minus, and the second one will have the opposite. Spencer.
For E,
Yep.
I did 2c times 2c is 4c, and I subtracted 3c from that, and I got 1c. I don't know what I did there.
Take your first term, multiply it by your second term, and see if you get 2c squared. I don't think you will. Anybody else?
Yeah, that's 4c squared. Okay.
Guys, in both cases, if you notice, listening to Janelle and Spencer, and they're both very, very, very intelligent, they both got it wrong because they failed to do the mental check. It's not a matter of their ability to think. Their ability to think is just fine. But every time you factor, before you conclude something is the answer, you're supposed to do a quick mental check. And if there's a problem, the mental check will reveal the problem to you, and because you are intelligent, you will be able to make the adjustments necessary to find the correct solution. Always, always, always a quick mental check with factoring. I am 53 years old. I've been factoring since I'm more or less your age, about 14 or so. That's 39 years of factoring, God bless. In 39 years of factoring, if I don't do a quick mental check, I will still occasionally, not often, but occasionally make a mistake. So if I make mistakes, if I don't quick mental check, I'm pretty sure you're gonna make them too. All right, quadratic equation, completing the square, any problems on those? Bless you. You'll notice in completing the square, we're starting to get ones that, God bless, aren't always even numbers. Are you hanging out with Kim?
No.
You sure?
I always see them.
All right. All right, so let's go to the next one, which asks us to graph this three ways. I didn't bother doing this graph because you would just do it on your calculator and write a table. I know you can handle that. I wanted to make sure that you could graph this one using the vertex form, where you look at it and you say, well, that vertex is -5, 7. And then you recognize there's a negative in front, so it's going to be an upside-down frowny parabola. And there's your quick sketch of the parabola right there. All right, at some point I'm going to talk to you about how I know to go here and here and here and here, but I just don't think I have time for that today. And then the other one is to graph with the zeros, and the zeros are -5 and 1. I mark them here. I find the axis of symmetry running down the middle. I plug that coordinate in, and I get -3 times 3 is -9, so there's my vertex at -2, -9, and then I form my parabola going up. Okay? If you can do all of the questions that we have gone over so far, then you are extremely, extremely good, because this is some of the meatiest content that you'll find on your Regents exam. That plus a word problem we got coming up. All right, next up. Speaking of the word problem, here's a little algebra review here. The big mistake that I see kids make on this, when it says 5n plus 3 squared, make sure you double distribute, right? Do not square the 5n and then square the 3. 5n plus 3 squared means you take the whole binomial 5n plus 3, and you multiply it by the whole binomial 5n plus 3, and then you double distribute. Extremely important that you do that. All right, next up. We should be good at these by now. We've done a lot of these. This is another one of those very difficult questions that the Regents will throw at you, and they'll make it worth 6 points. So you should have a comfort level with it. Are there any questions on number 6? Good. All right, number 7, A, B. This is the question here that I said to you the state will put on sometimes and ask you to solve it algebraically, and the whole key is knowing the formula. If you know the formula, it's really, really easy. Now, I was kind to you and I gave you the formula. You're plugging it in, you get x is equal to 2. So I would assume that everybody got that right, given that I gave you the formula, which means everybody will get it right on the Regents if you remember the formula. And they do not give it to you. Okay, next up. What's the vertex? You have to plug the 2 into the equation. When you do that, you come up with 6. So 2 comma 6. Quick sketch of 1/2 radical x. More sight recognition. The square root of x function looks like this when you graph it. So half you go half as tall. You just keep it a little closer to the x-axis. This is the x cubed function. 2x cubed just makes it a little taller, a little more narrow. Okay. And again, recognition of the square root function, that's f of x. P of x is vertical shift up 10. And Q of x is a horizontal shift. Remember, it's reversed in a grouping symbol. Negative whatever that is, 5, 8, I can't even see it. All right, any questions? So, I was taught a long, long time ago, for any team that you coach, and I'm just saying this because it is how it is and it should inspire confidence, God bless you. I was taught by a great coach by the name of Mr. Tom Grimm that the more you make the game like practice, and the more you make practice like the game, the more you're going to win. Now, I've been coaching in this school district for about 31 years. In 31 years, I've had roughly, give or take, 14 undefeated teams. I have had, to the best of my knowledge, I'm being as honest as I can right here, two losing seasons. Now, I've coached roughly 2 to 2.5 teams a year, because some years I did 3, some years I did 2. So I've probably coached 75 or 80 teams, and in those 80 teams we've gone undefeated about 14 times and had 2 losing seasons. And the secret to the success is that we make the practice like game. When you go to practice, you improve. It's how you're going to be asked to perform to win the game. And that's what your homeworks are like. Your homeworks are like your Regents exam questions. And if you can do these, I did my job as a teacher. If you open up your test Regents booklet and you look at it and you go, man, this looks like one of his homeworks. This looks just like a homework. If you do that, I've done my job. So take the homework very, very seriously and take going over the homework very, very seriously. Because if you do that, we're both going to be very, very, very successful. Okay. Now, let's do a little bit of algebra, solve for this, and then let's work a little bit more on translating vertex form, horizontal shift, vertical shift, numbers in front, coefficients other than 1, blah, blah, blah. Okay, solve for n. I look at that guy, and what is the first thought that pops into my mind when I look at that guy? Spencer?
Half and square.
No, that's not most definitely not. Absolutely not the first thought that hits my mind. So we need to change your thought process. The first thought that hits my mind is there a common factor? I'd love to get that common factor out of there. Unfortunately, there's not. So when there's not, what do?
Plan B.
Yeah, plan B. Multiply by 2, and I get n squared minus 5n minus 24 equals 0. Well, I don't even like to put the equal 0, because technically it's not it. So that'd be n minus 8 times n plus 3. Now I come back in and divide by the 2, and that gives me n minus 4 times 2n plus 3 equals 0. And I'm going to do this very quickly. 4 and negative 3 halves. Do I cross out the negative 3 halves?
No.
No, why? No context, that's exactly right. If it was length, if it was time, something like that, but it's not. So therefore, 4 and negative 3 halves are the correct answers. Again, there's no accident that this is the meatiest, most demanding material you get on your Regents exam, and you're seeing it every single day, time and again and again and again. And you will continue to see it until you look at this. You're going to see it for the rest of the year regardless, but you have to get to the point, bless you, God bless, where you look at this and you're like, I got this. No panic. No lack of confidence. You just look at it and go, I've done a million of these. I know exactly how to do it. Any questions? All right. So now we start talking about graphs. Okay, below is a graph of a piecewise function whose domain is negative 5 to 3. Now the domain is the x values. Let me put green here because I want that to stand out. From negative 5 to 3. Now this is actually made up of 2 different functions, okay? The g of x function is f of x plus 3, and the h of x function is f of x minus 4. Now you'll notice, what kind of shift is this? Everybody.
Horizontal.
Hey, head in the game.
Horizontal.
What kind of shift is this, everybody? Horizontal. How do you know it's horizontal shift? Because it's inside the package. Good. And we always reverse. So this would be actually 4 places to the right, and this one is what? Vertical shift, so it's what? 3 shifts, 3 units up. Okay, so this is f of x. This is a weird looking function. It's a piecewise function. It's a combination of a line and a parabola. Whatever it is, I don't care. Because I can now graph it. To do the g of x function, I take every f of x point and go up 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There's my graph. What does the g of x function do, everybody?
That's 3.
Vertical shift. It's up 3. So every single point goes up 3, connect the dots, you're done. Make sense? Okay. What am I going to do for the h of x graph? Move everything how? Come on, head in the game. How am I going to move for the h of x graph? Janelle.
Down? No, to the right or to the left?
To the right or left? Which one?
To the right?
Yes, because it's reversed in a grouping symbol. And how many places am I going to go?
4.
4. So, I'll do this one in black. Let's take everything, go 4. 1, 2, 3. There's the point 4. 4. Let's do this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Straight line. Parabola down. Okay? Now, you may have looked at that and said to yourself, what? What? I don't get it. I don't understand. And what we want you to realize is as soon as you see this, you should say to yourself, okay, that is vertical shift. So I'm going to move it up. And you see this, and you don't say it's vertical shift. What do you say it is? Horizontal shift. And it's a recognition sort of thing. As soon as you see it, you have to do it and react properly. In football, there's this expression for when you play defense called read and react. Read what they're going to do, react to what they're going to do. Read and react. +3 at the end, that's vertical shift, everything goes up 3. -4 in the parenthesis, everything goes opposite direction, 4 to the right, because it was in a parenthesis. Preguntas? Okay. Now, let's take those ideas and work them a little. There are, I think, 5 graphs here, 4 graphs, right? Your job is to match the correct graph with the correct equation with the correct description. You may talk to the person next to you. You have about a minute and a half to get that done. Go. Matching the graphs with the equation with the description. Make sure that you're looking for vertical shift. Make sure you're looking for horizontal shift. We know that they're all parabolas, so it's always an x squared term in there. What kind of function would it be if it came to a sharp point? Hey, absolute value, good. Okay, keep going. Okay, because we're running a little bit out of time here. What is the first one? Is it E1, 2, 3, or 4?
3.
3, right? Because you're going to go 3 to the right, down, and it's a negative. Good. What about the next one, G of x?
E1.
E1, good. The next one?
E4.
Is that E4? Yes, it's going to be 2 to the right and down 3. It is down 3. Good. And the last one then is? E2. Are there any questions about that? Okay, so horizontal, vertical shift, parent function, site recognition. That's where we're aiming. I think you should have a better grasp of it today than you did yesterday. And tomorrow we have one last day spent on this kind of work. And then we move a little bit forward. We got a test coming up at some point. I don't know when it is, but it won't be too far from now. Hasta la vista, vaya con Dios, toodaloo, ta-ta, arrivederci. Smile a lot. Ciao, Zane, adios amigos y amigas, gadusharus, gadafis, sayonara.